to take us.
I'm not gonna power through it, but I'm tired.
We're out, we're out.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for a moment of silence for the victims of the Atlanta spa attacks. And unfortunately, we have Asian Pacific Islanders that have experienced hate crimes throughout our country. And here in Gloucester Township, we celebrate diversity, and I hope that our country continues to celebrate diversity and celebrate the fabric of our country and all the people that make up our country. So I ask that you keep their families in your prayers and thoughts.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedules of the Township Council established and adopted by the Township Council, which schedule designates the time, date, and place of this public meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the Public Meetings Act, and we're using electronic amplifying and recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. And we request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly into the microphone. The recording device to be so utilized by Township Clerk's Office for the preparation minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meeting. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchinson?
Present.
Ms. Grace? Here. Mr. Mignone?
He is excused tonight.
Mrs. Stubbs?
She is running late.
Mrs. Leonard? Here. Mrs. Tardo? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present?
Mr. Carlino?
Present.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Mr. Lechner?
Here.
Mr. Parkins?
Here.
Mr. Shadwell?
Here.
I will now have our first public portion. This is for agenda items only. The public portion is a 15-minute time period where each speaker is allocated up to 3 minutes. Each speaker could speak twice if that's after everyone else has addressed council. And this is for agenda items only. Anyone wish to speak during the first public portion? Seeing none, we'll close the first public portion. Proclamation.
2021, we drive the text to pay distracted driving program. Whereas distracted driving is a serious life-threatening practice that is preventable. And whereas distracted driving can result in injuries and death to all road users, motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And whereas distracted driving occurs when drivers divert their attention away from the task of driving, focus on other activities instead. And whereas in 2018 alone, distracted driving-related crashes resulted in 2,841 deaths and 375,000 injuries on our nation's roads. And whereas in New Jersey, distracted driving is listed as a contributing circumstance in 50% of all motor vehicle crashes in 2018. And whereas the state of New Jersey will participate in the nationwide distracted driving 2021 crackdown from April 1st through the 30th, 2021, in an effort to raise awareness and decrease driver distractions through a combination of enforcement and education. And whereas the national slogan for the campaign is "You drive, you text, you pay." And whereas a reduction in distracted driving in New Jersey will save lives on our roadways. Therefore, be it resolved that David R. Mayer, Mayor of the Township of Gloucester, and Orlando Mercado, Council President, do hereby proclaim the Township of Gloucester's support for the distracted driving 2021 crackdown, both locally and nationally, from April 1st through the 30th, 2021, and pledge to increase awareness of the dangers of distracted driving.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Waive the reading and accept the minutes of regular session February 8th, 2021 and February 22nd, 2021. I entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. On the question, Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes to February 8th, abstain on February 22nd.
Ms. Grace,
Yes.
Mrs. Winter,
Yes.
Mrs. Strato,
Abstain to February 8th and yes to February 22nd.
Mr. Marqueta.
Yes to all. Next, we'll have ordinance, a second reading. There will be a public hearing. It's ordinance O-21-05. It's an ordinance amending chapter 70 of the code book of the Township of Gloucester entitled Smoking Regulations. Currently, we have that smoking is not prohibited in our public spaces, parks that are township owned. This includes, ordinance includes adding cannabis, marijuana products, or paraphernalia that can be used to consume those items. Chief Harkins, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I'd just like to add, I got more guidance. We're working with Assemblywoman Mascara's office for the New Jersey Clean Air Act, which is what empowers us throughout the state to add this. I've been advised that by us taking this action, we're way ahead of the game. It's a very good thing for us to do so that when that legislation goes forward, it gives us more teeth for enforcement. So I appreciate council's time and effort in considering this.
Thank you, Chief Harkins. We'll now open up the public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Entertain the motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Ms. Grace, yes. Mrs. Stubbs, Mrs. Winter,
Yes.
Mrs. Strato,
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta.
Yes, and thank you, Chief, for your work on this. Appreciate it. Next is our consent agenda. Any item that council would like to remove from the consent agenda? Any council member would like to remove any? Please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Strato. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Ms. Grace, yes. Mrs. Stubbs,
Yes.
Mrs. Winter,
Yes.
Mrs. Strato,
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta.
Yes.
Resolution 091, resolution to make budget transfers between appropriation reserve and the calendar year 2020 current fund budget.
I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Grace, Mr. Hutchinson. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison,
Yes.
Ms. Grace, yes. Mrs. Stubbs, yes. Mrs. Winter, yes. Mrs. Strato,
Yes.
Mr. Marqueta.
Yes. We have a GTE Gov access email. Mrs. Strato, Vice President, will read that tonight.
This was from a resident who felt, it was sent directly to the mayor's office, felt disappointed that the leadership of Gloucester Township has yet to make any statement in public against the senseless killing of the Asian Pacific individuals in Atlanta, as well as the many accounts of Asian Pacific hate crimes which have occurred. So in response to that, we did do a moment of silence this evening, and the township will continue to work with all of the residents to be one unified township community.
Thank you, Mrs. Strato.
Can I just add that all township flags were lowered to half staff throughout the township from last Thursday until this evening
Thank
in
you.
honor of that.
Can we reach out to that individual and let that individual know?
Yes, Gabby did. Thank you.
Next, we'll have our public portion. This is a 30-minute period, and each individual is allocated up to 5 minutes. They may speak twice after everyone else has spoken. This is for any item that the public chooses to speak upon. Is there anyone who would like to speak during the public portion? Mr. Burns.
Good evening, Council. Brian Burns, 5 Slowwood Drive, Ariel. First thing I want to say is thank you for your support in the acquisition of the Rosalind Bridge property, which is an exceptional natural resource. I understand there's been some kind of unplanned delays in the closing of that. Hopefully that closing will take place shortly. I have gone, before I move on, I'm not sure if the council knows, the township has allocated from Green Acres $1.6 million that has to be spent So I have reached out to a number of residents who also own adjacent parcels to the Rosalind Bridge property. And I would like to give council tonight a letter from Miss Helen Hayes, who her and her mother own about 45 acres adjacent to the Rosalind Bridge property. And they have had the property for 4 generations and would love to see it preserved through the Green Acres program as permanent open space. May I present this information to you?
Yes, please.
So here's the email. Mr. Lecter's response is included, and also there in yellow is the Hayes property. Okay? In addition to that, I got a call from the Murrays today. The Murrays own 60 acres right across from the GEMS landfill. And they too would love to preserve their space or their land as permanent open space. So what I'm trying to get here, folks, Gloucester Township's open space is dwindling at, to me, an alarming rate. I took pictures. This is behind Lowe's. Thousands, probably thousands of residents are going to be moving in here. Land no longer available for open space. This is on Sicklerville Road in the area of the Super Wawa. They're putting storage areas in there. That was a mature oak, hickory, maple forest. Gone. The Nike base. Gone. How much more land is going to be just developed? It's getting ridiculous. It's out of control. And I realize, council may say, well, property owners have a right to sell the property, for the zoning that is permitted. And I understand that. But when you have $1.6 million available for Green Acres for open space, why can't we kind of work together and say, yeah, what are the prime areas? And the Little Mill Road area is, in my viewpoint, someone who's lived in the township, who has a degree in environmental science, has written a book. That is the core environmental, ecologically sensitive area in our township. And the acreage is going for like $5,000 an acre. That's the assessed value through Green Acres. So out of $1.6 million, the value of these properties is not a lot of money. So if we have residents who are in writing telling you, we'd love to have this land preserved, for our families and future generations, I urge you, please, consider this seriously. And let's save the amount of open space that we have. It's going so fast. It's crazy. You got, the Nike, this is on across from Penco Tech. I think that's Little Gloucester Road. Another gigantic development going in. Every time I turn around, people value open space. And I wish the people in the township weren't so busy raising families and, taking care of the things they have to do. And they could be in this room tonight and say, people, they love open space. It's important to them. It's important for, wildlife habitat, for ecology, for clean water. I can't emphasize it enough. When I moved here 34 years ago, Gloucester Township was a rural community. And now it's getting like Cherry Hill. Every time I turn around, the vacant lot is gone. It's gone. It's gone. And here's the proof. So, I don't know when these decisions are made and approved, do people actually go out and take a look at these sites and look at how much open space is left? It's not much. The Watson Waddell farm on, I guess it's Garwood, that's probably the last farm left, and, how long before that's gone? Open space increases property values in communities. Things like this, all they are is a draw on our services, on police and fire and people moving in with children and our schools. And they complain about the taxes. And I'm not an accountant. I'm certainly not a person in township finance. And I don't know how many people have to move in to cover the cost of the services that are provided to those people. I really don't understand how that works. But when you have gigantic townhomes and apartment places coming in like this, that's a drain. And look at the congestion on the roads. All these people, more cars, more people in schools. And I spent some money out of my pocket today because sometimes pictures tell a much bigger story than someone just blah, 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 blah. So, please, these properties that people are telling you in writing they want to have preserved, we have $1.6 million to do it. Please, I encourage you, I ask you, I plead with you, save these properties, save this core area of undeveloped land so that people in the future can go and enjoy and decompress on weekends. And there's a place for wildlife, and there's clean springs with water coming out that you can drink from. And there's endangered plant species. I could go on and on and on. I hope you feel my passion. And this is, I don't know, when I die, I want to leave my community a better place than when I came here. So I'm just, I like Gloucester Township. I think Gloucester Township is a great place to live. But the amount of open space that is available to the people who live here it's here. It's just going quickly. So thank you for your attention. And anytime you want to go see these properties, I'm retired. I can take you any day of the week. And you can see for yourself firsthand what's there.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro from the Historic Village of Ariel. A couple of quick but very important points I'd like to make. Also, in our thoughts and prayers, Council and the community would want to be aware of the passing of Barbara Ashton, who has meant a lot to the community, and as well as Walter Doherty. And we celebrate their life and mourn their passing, and I'm sure you will agree. On another note, we'd like to congratulate Mr. Palumbo on his retirement. I understand that he has moved on to bigger, better things like rest and relaxation, and we welcome the new tax assessor. I would like to find out the status of my question that has still not been answered over several meetings, the Swamp Pink. I know that you keep on deferring to the DEP, but the DEP has to say something, and if no one's going to check into it and it goes overlooked, then we've got a problem because it was a major, major hurdle in the past. And if that plant is still endangered, it's still an issue. I'd like somebody to check with the DEP and find out before that landfill is filled with solar panels and we damage something that seemed to be so precious in the past, but doesn't seem to be as precious to follow up at this time. Following up on the gentleman's...
So, Mr. Lechner or Mr. Carlemere, can you look into that? I know we've discussed it. If there was an issue with swamping, it would have been addressed, but if we could follow up on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Lechner.
As the gentleman was speaking just previously about the open space disappearing, I remember on a couple different occasions asking Mr. Lechner if he felt that this township was seeing more open space, equal open space, or less open space. He believed, when he answered me, that we had more open space because we pay a lot of money to both the township and the county for open space. And if it is shrinking, then you're taking our money for no reason because it's not doing what it's intended to do. I don't know what's going on with it, but if we're not getting more open space, our money's not being spent well, or it's not being taken from us for the right reasons. Which brings me to my fifth point. Some time ago, I had asked Mr. Harlemere if the consideration could be made with, at the time we had a vacant house situation as people were fleeing here. If some of those houses could be considered to offset our quota for affordable housing. At some point, township developed a market to affordable. The market to affordable sounded really good, but it turned out to be a dud, a terrible dud. That being said, we're putting money out as the township does. You guys love consultants. I'm not sure how well you're aware of a gentleman named Patrick Murray. I'm sorry. He seems to be doing rather well. Over the 16 months that he has been on this program, we have nothing. We got zero. It looks like he rents an office and he takes a salary, and we've got zero. Furthermore, if those market to affordable are not going to figure into our responsibility for affordable, then this should be a no-brainer that this program should be halted. Cease and desist. There's no reason for it. Money's going out and nothing's coming about. And that also goes for Triad. There's people making money off a program that's designed to do absolutely nothing for this township. We've got a quota. We're working on affordable homes and affordable housing for people. And we're going to be doing a program to turn these homes from market to affordable. It's not going to offset our numbers. People want to live in their home, have their values up. People need to live in affordable homes. And their value stands for something as well. But this program has no reason for being here, with money going out, nothing coming in, and the end result not helping this township or the people of the township or folks that need those affordable homes. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. I think Triad ought to go find something better to do, as well as Mr. Murray. I think you'll all agree if you take a look at it in its simplest form. I'm not sure who the liaison is for the Housing Authority. Is it Ms. Grace?
Is Ms. Grace.
I would love to see what our liaison has for information back to council as to what her opinion may be for all the money going out for this program, with the end result being it will not affect the quota and it serves no purpose. If council will allow.
Well, before Ms. Grace speaks, she's newly appointed to the Housing Authority and getting her feet wet there. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it.
No, I've only been in one meeting.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. There's only been one meeting I attended. The last meeting was canceled.
Good question, so right.
So I think that perhaps Ms. Grace will contact the Housing Authority and get an update on any progress that's being made there and report back to us. I appreciate it.
Okay. And lastly, I just want to say that of all the things that we differ with, both governmentally, politically, and what have you, I can say that Gloucester Township is a very diverse township. Everyone gets along. I don't believe we have the problems that the rest of our country has, and that is the one thing that we do have a great deal of pride in, is that everyone respects one another because we are who we are, and we want to keep it that way. Thank you. Have a good night.
I appreciate that. Is there anyone else? Mr. Krug?
Evening, Council. Paul Krug, Blackwood Estates.
Good evening.
Over the past several months, I've presented a series of data sets which clearly indicates a troubling trend as it pertains to the municipal taxes levied against Gloucester Township citizens. That trend showed a 350% increase in taxes levied over a two-decade period between 1998 and 2018, significantly outpacing comparable townships of Cherry Hill and Washington Township in the area. We've had an ongoing discussion where I've responded to council's suggestions at the bequest of Ms. Stubbs, taking into account Cherry Hill as a comparable township, even though I believe that the equalized tax base didn't make it a comparable township. And I've reasonably responded to council's justifications for the increases, the growth argument, as we discussed last council meeting, having brought the census data and referencing a undeveloped project in Blackwood West redevelopment plan. Now, it seems logical for us to move past the denial and anger stages and on to acceptance and resolution. That will take a change of mindset. Councilman Hutchison during the last meeting said that he and I would continue to go at it. Dan, I'm not interested in going at it with you. I'm a citizen requesting that you go at it with the municipal budget to turn around an unsustainable trend of spending. Councilwoman Winters, you spoke of this change and being an agent of change. I'd be interested to hear on the resolution front how you plan specifically to change this trend.
Well, Paul, I think we're going to look at the budget. I know Michelle and I have talked about
Dan,
it.
respectfully, the question was to Ms. Winters.
Well, I'm gonna.
Well, hold on, and I'm gonna stop everybody. That has to be addressed to the chair here, and I'll ask Mrs. Winters if she's available to comment on that. Okay, we established that last time. Ms. Winters?
Like Dan said, we have spoken about it. We have different opinions throughout the council. And I think through the budget season, we will continue to work and do the things that we feel need to be done.
Are you a proponent for a committee being set up earlier this year to take a better look at that 90-page itemized list of expenses?
I think that's up to President Mercado.
You don't have an opinion on it?
I think it's something as a group that we need to work on.
May
Ms.
I address Mr. Crew?
Yes.
Just to let you know that Michelle and I have spoken about this budget issue a couple of times over the last couple of months. And both Michelle and I are going to be sitting down together going through the budget line by line. We're going to also try to include Ms. Grace in that so that we can make sure that everybody is at the same level when we look at the budget.
I appreciate that, and took another question right out of my mouth because I was going to engage Ms. Grace next. So, Council President, have you considered starting that subcommittee earlier? It sounds like there's already discussion of it to do a line-by-line comb through.
Once the budget has been submitted from the administration to council, I'll make that determination.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Miss? Sorry to point.
Good evening, Elizabeth Dugan, Blenheim.
Good evening, Ms. Lee.
So I was reading through the resolutions before this meeting, and I understand that one of the resolutions was regarding a cooperative purchasing agreement between Gloucester Township and Camden County. So I just wanted to get a little bit of a better understanding of it. So I thought I knew who the lead agency was, but I might be mistaken. So who's the lead agency in that agreement?
Mr. Parliament, excuse me, Mr. Cardis. That would be Camden County.
Camden County is the lead. Okay. So how long have we? I want to talk to him, but I know I have to address you. How long have we had that agreement, approximately?
Directly.
I'll just start. with you.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it's back several years. Nancy, if I'm correct, it's for office supplies.
Yes.
And we can either use it or we can go out on our own. Most of the time when we go out on our own, we get better prices than the co-op, believe it or not. But it is a vehicle that we can look at, and that's how we make comparisons with the amounts that we pay for the objects that we use.
All right, so that's just for office supplies. Okay, and that kind of answers my other question because as you pretty much just confirmed, sometimes the cooperative doesn't have the lowest price, and we're obligated to check to see if they do have the lowest price. Besides the cooperative agreement, do you have other cooperatives like the what do you call it, the state cooperative agreement, or anything else that you use for other purchases such as vehicles, whatever else?
We have the cooperative up in Middlesex County.
We use that. We have gasoline with the schools.
Paper as well.
Paper as well. They're getting away from that though, so we're going to be working with those the copy paper stuff by ourselves. Okay. I think the local is disbanding the joint purchasing agreement. I don't know what the particulars are. No, that starts as of July 1st.
State contract.
State contract, I was trying to think.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So that takes care of that. I also wanted to address something that I believe Mr. Hutchinson brought up at the last meeting with regard to basically the concept that I understand is that if you don't fix things at the right point. There's a sweet spot between, spending the right amount of money and spending like too much money because the wall that you were describing is just going to crumble down. I just wanted to give a quick scenario from my personal experience. At my house, my roof was leaking. Didn't know where it was coming from, so I made the decision to get a whole new roof. And I was getting prices, it was crazy, from $7,000 to $24,000. And the $7,000 guy, which I did pick, not just because he was the lowest, but because he was willing to do the roof, and he was willing to come back if there was a problem and basically go through the experiment with me, like, okay, is it here? So I wanted to kind of remind you that, we do understand that things need to be fixed, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in a cost-effective manner. And the final thing, Council President, since Mr. Cardis is here, I had brought up at the last meeting regarding the manual checks and I do know the nature of them, but my concern was I didn't know why certain disbursements had to use manual checks, because manual checks in my mind means that you're kind of circumventing the regular procedures for some reason, and I didn't understand why.
Mr. Cardis, can you?
Yeah, you are permitted to issue manual checks, and those manual checks go through council on the bill list. So, it's not unusual. We'll try to minimize the number of manual checks. I can't think of the scenarios right now as far as when you would actually need a manual check. But it does rise. You need emergency purchases or something like that. They only take a check. They won't take a voucher. A lot of places do not take POs.
So so you use manual checks in an instant where you can't issue a purchase order?
That's
Or a
correct.
voucher? Okay.
That's correct. Absolutely.
So the last meeting that I was at, it looks like there were checks, I guess, for some sort of remittance to Camden County. It was a pretty big number. It was like $10 million. And then this meeting, it looks like there's a lot of checks for lien redemptions, I'm assuming for taxes. People are paying their taxes and then you're paying the investor, I guess. So those are situations where you couldn't issue a voucher for some reason?
No, that you wouldn't issue a voucher on the county taxes. That's a quarterly tax payment.
Right.
So as you may be aware, the local collects all the money
Yes.
for the entire tax bill. We collect the local schools, the Blackbird Pike, the county, and we're responsible to remit that on a regular basis. Fire companies get checks monthly, the schools get checks monthly, the county gets theirs quarterly, and that's why you saw that big check on there.
Okay. All right. Looks like I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan. For anyone else? Gentleman with the hat on? Oh, that's Mr. Brown.
Starting to say, I know face mask covers everything. David Brown, Mulberry Station. I have three quick questions. A lot of people from our department, our neighborhood, has sent letters to the council and to the mayor about our playground. We were told 5 years ago we were going to get a new one. We were told it was on the list for last year. And I was just trying to find out an update on the playground for our subdivision.
When you say a lot of people, I don't recall even getting one.
I know 7 sent them to the mayor at least.
All right.
What's the location?
Mulberry Station.
Mulberry Station.
That's right now on our list. In fact, we are going to be presenting to council at the next action meeting in April, which was also our workshop, for us to apply to Green Acres for funding for Mulberry Station and Sturbridge Oaks. So that's the game plan. We're going to talk to you about that at that meeting, and we'll have a resolution on it to go ahead and effectuate that.
Dave, I know you're only speaking for yourself, but I have to ask this question. Is this something that your neighborhood is behind?
Yes.
So there are certain neighborhoods.
It's on our Facebook page. Everybody's talking
There are
about it.
certain neighborhoods that do not want playgrounds.
No, he's correct. Theirs is
It's utilized and.
yes.
Yes.
And it was delayed, not right for
Yeah,
COVID.
Yeah, I believe it was delayed because of COVID last year.
Now that we can apply for these grants, I think it's 75% grant, 25% loan, Anthony?
I'm not sure about.
Green Acres now Green Acres pays for installation of playground equipment and replacement of playground equipment. That didn't used to be the case. It was only acquisition of land. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's a 2%, 25% loan with a 75% grant. So it's, from my perspective, it's a no-brainer. The problem is, I will tell you right now, it takes some time because it's going through the red tape and bureaucracy through the state.
Because, I mean, we went out there and we've taped over sharp spots so that kids, and we
aware.
got holes in the slide, so,
It was on our list.
okay. But thank you. I'm assuming we don't know about property tax increase for this coming year.
The budget has not been submitted to council yet. Mr. Carter, do you have an anticipation date?
No, we're still looking that over. Statutorily, I believe it's the first meeting after March 30th. It's when it's supposed to be introduced. There is some confusion too with the amount of money that's coming in from this COVID package, and as to how that money can be applied and used. So we're waiting for some guidance on that too.
Thank you.
All right. And last thing I got, it's been discussed for quite a few years about the the cards for shopping in the community and all that, where we shop in the community, it goes towards our property tax and all that. I know other communities have them, and now we've discussed it for a while here, but just wondering about any update on those.
Actually, we haven't discussed it in about 2 years. This was, a subcommittee was put together, and Ms. Trotter headed up that subcommittee. And in some of the research that committee did, these programs were a bit on a decline. And some of the municipalities that participate, the vendors that participate, and Ms. Trotter, if you want to tag in, they've had mixed feelings about it. Ms. Trotter, is there anything else to add to that?
I don't have anything more recent. The last discussion was probably, like you said, 2 years, when vendors were finding it not to be cost effective for them to be a part of it.
Okay. Well, one question I had about that is, I know of all the municipalities in New Jersey, we rank 20th in giving out tax abatements for the state. How about putting that card in with, if you're going to get a tax abatement, you have to use this card for our township?
I don't know legally if we could do that. And I'm putting on the spot, Mr. Carlemaire.
It's not ringing a bell that you have authority to do that, but I checked into it, that if there's any link or that requires that kind of legislation, but I would kind of think not.
I mean,
Maybe a
because it has to do with taxes.
Is there a kindly suggestion to that business? But I don't think that that's something that we can mandate in exchange for a tax abatement. Something that is offered to any business that's moving in here.
I mean, if they get that tax abatement for 5 years, why not say for 5 years you use this, and then after the 5 years you can decide if you want to opt out. Because I mean, we're ranked 20th in the state in giving out tax abatements. Why can't we?
Oh, that's.
Can you tell me where you got that data, Mr. Guy?
Something with the state I was looking at. I have to look it up and tell you.
So
I'll get back to you.
when you go to that site, can you forward that to us? I would be interested to
Yeah,
take a
that's
look
no
at
problem.
it. Okay?
I was just wondering. So I mean, I don't know what the rules, regulations are on that kind of thing, but I was just wondering if that could be, because we're trying to find any way to keep our taxes down. I mean, I've been here 9 years. My taxes went up $2,000 a year for my property tax. And now that they've cut out, last year they cut out the homestead rebate completely. The year before that, it was cut in half. My house payment's up $220 a month more than it was 9 years ago. And all that's doing is killing the middle class. And we've got to figure out something, because the middle class will leave. And we've got to do something to try to keep the middle class here.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Ms. Coyne, followed by Mr. Sweet, and now we'll end up our public portion.
Good evening, Denise Coyne.
Hey, Ms. Coyne, nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. I survived. See, you did as well. I'd like to know if the land deal between the housing authority and the township has been finalized.
Mr. Carlemare?
I would say not. I'm not handling that personally. I know that's what legal counsel is. I'm kept in the loop. I know the contract has not come back from the housing authority's attorney. The report of title and examination of title, I believe, is in. The abstract company, Brennan, has already submitted it. I have not seen it yet. Status of the closeness of the closing, I could not answer.
Okay.
I can look into that.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
I have several questions regarding that piece of property and the land deal. The first being, I noticed that there was a restriction on the deed that said when the property was sold from Camden County to the housing authority initially, that the deed was restricted, that the property could only be used for senior housing. And if it ever wasn't used for senior housing, it had to revert back to the county.
I cannot answer that, but I know when the original transfer, it dealt with the structured senior campus one that's there now. I don't know if it added the additional 10 acres that remain. So what was required to be built as far as the county, that acquisition and development completed at 31. That other 10 acres, I would not think there was a deed restriction on that. I'm sure it would have been brought up because there's a lot of talk about that property over the years for development.
Well, I believe that same stipulation was in the agreement when the property was sold from the housing authority to the township, that it had to be used for senior housing.
It's been part of our settlement with affordable housing. It remains part of our settlement with affordable housing as to what we want to accomplish. It also has veterans housing attached to it now.
And also multifamily housing, which is non-age restricted.
Well, I think the attachment that I would say is there deals with senior housing and veterans housing.
Correct, but now the township has an overlay to allow the multifamily housing, which is not age restricted, which means the property, the deed would go back to the county.
I would not say that that's, I'd have to check that, is that deed restriction? I don't recall ever seeing that type of deed restriction as we dealt with the land was transferred. It was a large company that was going to purchase it. Of course, they were going to purchase it for affordable housing, senior housing also. But I've never seen that issue come up over the many years that I've watched that property.
So how do we find out for sure?
I'm sure the transaction is taking place now. If there's a deed restriction, that's going to be reflected in the report that's coming in from the title company.
Okay, then the other question I have regarding that was, it looks to me like $2,207,547 of affordable housing trust fund money has been used to buy and sell this property back and forth. And in 13 years, basically $2.2 million later, we have one building with 75 apartments in it. So it appears as though the Affordable Housing Trust Fund money is being like passed around like a shell game between the county, the township, and the housing authority over and over again for the same piece of property. I don't understand how that makes any sense. And then if that's the case, it looks like the taxpayers are going to be picking up the bill for the township's affordable housing that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund should cover, that now it can't because all this money's been paid to shuffle this land back and forth.
Council President, I've been here 32 years, and I don't recall this property transfer ownership.
2008, the housing authority bought it from Camden County. 2012, the Housing Authority sold it to the township. And 2021, now we want to sell it back to the Housing Authority. So that's $2.2 million of affordable housing trust fund money that's been spent going back and forth on the same piece of property. I don't know how that makes sense or how it's even justifiable. From what I understand, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is supposed to pay for affordable housing so that the taxpayers don't have to. But it looks like the money's being spent in land use. Unless I'm missing something.
The only way I can respond to that is when the housing authority acquired the property for the county, the whole structure plan was to build that initial complex that's there now. That was where the funding came from and what was approved. That's what was accomplished. The present senior campus one. Then the remaining property was being held, and then the private company development went to try to get state funding. That was out there for several years, and they just were, state was not giving out dollars for that type of development, and that never came about. Here we are today. Remaining and
Right, but since then, the Housing Authority sold it to the township. And the township and the Housing Authority were supposed to work together to put in senior housing there. That never happened. Then that came about because the Housing Authority was running low on funds. So they sold the land to the township to get money, and the township sat on it all these years. We still don't have any housing, and now the township's selling it back to the Housing Authority. Well, I have the documents, I can show them to you if you want. 2012, the Housing Authority sold the land to the township for $734,712. Okay.
I don't recall.
All right, well, I'm telling you it happened, so I'm just asking like how does that even make sense?
Ms. Warren, I think we're gonna need some time. I know you've sent emails in the past. This is something that is, I guess, near and dear to you. You've been asking questions regarding this parcel of property. We're coming in cold listening to your questions here. Is it possible you could put that in writing and we could look into that for you? Because I can't recollect, yes, or Mr. Carr's or Mr. Carlin there, transactions. You know what you have in front of me. I have to go by what you're telling me. Okay. So if you could send that beforehand or give us, what you're looking for, we can address that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Sweet?
Good evening, Council. Sam Street from Ariel.
Good evening, Sam.
There's supposed to be a playground going in at Ariel, pre-COVID, that was part of the Green Acres, and then was shut down because of COVID. Where is that in the grand scheme of playgrounds?
I don't know what we're talking about. What playground in Ariel was not?
Pre-COVID, there was a playground going in at the Ariel Little League field. You sent emails to several residents saying that it was going in. Bill Fagan, director of the rec center, said that it was just waiting for approval. It then sent one saying it was approved. We just have to schedule now. And then everything was put on hold for COVID. And I understand why it was put on hold for COVID, but just now that Mulberry Station, is it? Mulberry Station's getting one. I know that's on the list and that's fine, but what happened to the Ariel one?
That's the money that was moved to either Woods Edge, I think, or Laurel Hills, one of the two.
No, the Woods Edge.
There was another one that was going to go, a brand new one, getting into development. And the residents signed a petition, did not want it.
Is that the one you're talking about, Sam? I thought we covered that already.
But when is the Ariel one being put in?
they didn't want it?
No,
Okay.
No, that was the one we're having some difficulties trying to fit it
Okay.
in there
Got it.
because of the fact that they had a shed there to put all their equipment in there. I don't know that there's enough room. We'd have to do something a lot smaller. It just doesn't fit very well in that area.
so is that on the schedule to be built? Because
It's not right now.
so it's been totally removed.
It's not on the schedule right now.
So it's been removed.
Not on the schedule right now.
Same thing.
All right. Why is it not on the schedule when it was?
Mr. Barnes, can you tell us that?
I mean,
Well,
this is
yeah,
something,
like I said, we moved it away because it was a complete, grassroots installation. And we had an issue with these other playgrounds that were already there that needed to be replaced. So we moved it for that purpose.
Can we take a look at, maybe try to revisit it at some point?
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. The small business, grants that are being, I know Triad's helping with the applications. Who's approving the applications? Who's in charge of approving?
Right. Yep. We're disapproved.
They're basically accepting the applications, seeing what is eligible, and then certifying those applications as complete.
And then once they approve it, who does it go to? Does Triad releasing the money or is Gloucester Township releasing the money? How is that, what's that process?
Well, the money's been released at this point. I believe it would be the township would be requesting the funds. But again, I'd have to check, to be honest with you. Had you maybe emailed me today, I might have an answer for you.
Okay, but why don't we know the answer to that?
Again,
Because that should be,
Very well
that,
emailed me.
you guys, funds are going out to Triad. We've been down that road, I'm not going down that road. But now Triad's approving it, they're the lock, stock, and barrel, soup to nuts apparently. I'm asking where the money's going, you know, how's it going out, and our business administrator doesn't know the answer to that off the top of his head?
Off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay, that's fine,
If
thank
you
you.
email me like you do with a
Thank
lot
you.
of things.
All right,
I would
thank
have
you,
an answer
Tom.
for you. Thanks, Ed.
All right,
We'll have an answer to you. We probably get an answer tomorrow too.
thank you. Since it's public funds, will there be a list of recipients
Yes, I'll provide that. That should be available.
that should be available? And did I hear correctly that no funds have been released yet?
Correct.
We've had 39 applications received. 25 were approved and invited to apply. 14 were rejected. 5 were located outside of the township. 6 were ineligible businesses. 2 had more than 10 employees. 2 had businesses that opened after 12/31/2019. So 4 applications have been received from eligible businesses, 7. When I saw that number today and I asked Mr. Cardis for an update from Triad regarding that, I think that I know that social media, we've been posting a lot of information about that, but I would like to generate more and more interest in that. And that's something that I'll have a conversation with the mayor about. With that, I like to see more applicants and make sure that people are aware of this program. So we've had 7 that are received from eligible businesses that are completed full applications. So 7 completed, 4 of them are certified as complete, and 3 of them are incomplete or in process.
Okay, so we have that information that you said, 39, I'm not gonna repeat, but 39 applied, blah, blah, blah. But we don't know, and 4 are complete and certified.
4 are certified.
So
as
they're just
complete.
waiting, but we don't know where the money's, how the money's getting to them, from who.
I don't have that information yet.
I believe the money comes through the township, but I'm gonna verify that tomorrow.
Okay. That's all I had, thank you. If I could, I saw some more hands, can we request an extension for the people that, if anybody else wants to talk? Was not
There
talk?
was no other hands.
Okay.
You were the last speaker, the nice.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you, have a good
With
night.
that, we'll close the second public portion. Polling of directors.
Mr. Mayor,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis,
Nothing to report.
Mr. Lechner,
Council President, I would like council to know that I have been working with the administration and assembling a list of open space properties that we're going to seek to use the funding. Well, after the Roslyn Bridge purchase, we'll have about 1.4 million.
1.3?
1.4, because the Roslyn Bridge is 215,000. Yeah, and that's where we're at. So we have to try to assemble that, the lists.
Ken, I don't want to put you on the spot, if I may just raise it. Brian had indicated that we have to use that 1.6, that 1.4 within a certain period of time. Is it, do you know what that time is?
There's no specific time, to be quite honest. What happens is if Green Acres sees that the money is not being expended, they will usually contact me to find out what's going on. And so we have given them a list of properties that are no longer, we're no longer seeking. We use some of the funds for other properties, but the township does have a significant amount of open space. It may not look like it, but at the Gloucester Community Park, got the Slim's Ranch County Park. There's a significant amount of land all around the Gabriel Davies Tavern property that you may not even know that we have. And then all the active fields. So there is quite a bit. And, I've known Mr. Burns now for 17 years here. One of the first residents I met in the town. So I know his passion, I respect it, and he knows that. But we are trying to get that information. I didn't want to leave you go and not know that.
Well, stay there, Ken. So I won't put you on the spot either. Well, going back to my time when I was on the planning board, for those who aren't familiar, there's always a council member that's placed on the planning board. So I did 9 years on the planning board, and some of these projects that Mr. Burns had brought up were either approved during that time when I was on the planning board or prior to me. And one that the project on Eagle Road, Mr. Burns, that you showed, which was originally called Southwinds Project, and that was supposed to be a Valley Brook Light-esque development, and where it had some component of affordable housing for seniors, and then it was going to be townhomes. And that was a project that, when it went to the planning board at the time said, we don't like it. And that was not a valid excuse for defeating a project. They went to court, they litigated this, Mr. Carver, that's refreshing your memory, litigated, we had to go back, and that project was approved. That project was approved, I would say maybe 2006, and it just stood there. It just stayed, it did not move forward until a new owner, property owner, purchased that. But that was private land. The project, when Mr. Burns, when he talked about what's going on behind the Lowe's in that particular area, and then backed up to YO, that whole Target area, that was a private parcel of land. And you mentioned that, Mr. Burns. You said, well, it's private parcel land. As a township, we're limited in, we can't handcuff a property owner, private property owner. What we can hold them to adhere to our zoning guidelines that we have, or zoning and land use laws, and hold their feet to the fire with that. But we just can't say, I don't like a project, and give that reasoning for why something is not being approved. And there's some other instances I'm sure Mr. Leckie you could bring up, but
yeah, you can't really, would not recommend you zone properties for open space, especially private property, because you're basically zoning the property. The word we use is inutility. These residents are paying taxes on their property. They're entitled to develop their property in accordance with the zoning ordinance. So long as somebody is complying with our zoning ordinance and everything else that's required in land development, they are entitled to what we call a quote by right and quote approval. The planning board has to approve it. Even when the planning board may deny it, there's litigation, and we settled on that, the Southwinds property. But yeah, 2005, 2006, it's just under construction presently.
And
But there is a lot of open space in Gloucester Township, and I don't want anyone to think that there isn't, because there is.
There is a property recently in the last 2 years that a resident came in and talked about a historical farm next to it. But that historical farm sold that parcel of land. And they sold it to a private developer. And so I guess it was a historical at the time when they sold it. But it became historical, and people talked about what type of use would be permitted there, and that brought people out to our council meetings. But if that resident was concerned about open space and maintaining that, then maybe they would have never sold that property to somebody who was a private developer who was looking to put housing there. So,
And that property, Mr. Burns mentioned, Helen Hayes, you'll see in the email. I did email her back to let her know that we need a more written, firm commitment, because we're going to have to expend monies for appraisals, environmental reports, surveys, and we need to have a very firm commitment that they understand that we can only purchase it to the based on the certified market value. And I expect it's going to be close to the 215,000, because it's the same acreage and the same environmental resource area. It's adjacent to the Rosalind Bridge property. That is a nice area to assemble open space along with the Murray Farm. It would be good. Probably.
so all right, thank you, Mr. Lecter.
You're welcome.
Chief Hawkins.
Just in regards to the diversity that we're talking about, I couldn't, the words that you said, the sentiments I agree with. I just want to inform council, we've been working with the mayor's office. If you look in the very front of the building, we had a local company called Paver Art. We're putting together, pavers, our public works guys are doing a great job putting it together. It's a neurodiversity, Gloucester Township Police, Gloucester Township, neurodiversity in recognition of autism awareness. That's going to be unveiled on April 2nd. It's Autism Awareness Day. So we wanted to let council know we'll be out here. We're having an unveiling event on Friday, April 2nd at 10 a.m. right in front of the police station. It's going to be a beautiful dedication to those who are with neurodiversity issues. So.
And that's Good Friday, so we'll see you all. So, not to put you on the spot, Chief Harkins. Questions tonight. So, Chief Harkins, have you received any guidance from the Attorney General in regards to some of these hate crimes that are taking place? Anything from Trenton that has come down?
So we're regularly involved with monitoring. Twice a week, we're monitoring on a statewide call with other law enforcement officials run by the state police, and we're in regular monitoring of the situation. I would say in the South Jersey area, we have not experienced the types of things that are going on. And generally in New Jersey, we have a very robust reporting system. There's notifications that I have to be made. If one of our officers right now, some kind of hate crime or a bias crime happens, I have to be notified of certain steps I take. Our county prosecutor's office responds, and there's notifications we make to our attorney general. Even for the most minor things. And when in doubt, we treat it as a bias crime until we prove otherwise. We are constantly being updated. We are immediately notified of the incidents that were going on through a statewide intelligence network. As soon as the incidents were happening in Atlanta, we get put on, and we're always doing in-house check of any names of anybody that comes through the databases that we have access to. We have a detective that's assigned to that just does intelligence. We have a civilian analyst who's constantly. So we are always aware of it. We do mandatory training every year for all the officers to recognize bias crimes. And I'm proud to say that throughout our area, especially the Gloucester Township Police, we're on top of it. We are always looking at ways. And one of the main ways that we stop this, and she's in the back, Jen McLaughlin, through community relations, getting out there, prevention is always a much, much better way of addressing these issues through our schools. So we are very much on top, very much aware of these types of crimes happening. Even with, we're going to be putting out within the next couple days a wanted social media efforts for the assaults at the Capitol building. The FBI's asked our assistance. We have videos of the 10 worst assaults on the police officers that were working at the Capitol. So we'll be sharing that information to try and bring those people to justice as well. So it's always at our forefront. We're always talking about it. It's part of that call that happens twice a week that our detectives or even myself are involved.
Thank you.
Deborah?
That's your report.
John?
Brian, thank you for coming up and, allowing us to see your passion. I know that you had a question after Ken was standing up there. I think the important thing from what you said was that there is available ground out there, and there's willing owners of that ground to sell that to the town, and we can preserve that as open space going forward. That was not lost with what Ken said tonight, okay? And I will inquire from everybody up here and the administration as to what we can do to acquire that property.
What I did fail to mention is that because of this proximity to the Jim's landfill, Green Acres is 75%, and the Office of Natural Resource Restoration is 25%.
And we'll look into that. We will. On a different note, when people come up to the microphone, many of the individuals have prepared statements, prepared questions, and they make their statements and they attempt to put individuals up here in a situation where they can catch them, make them look bad, pin them down. For me, it doesn't bother me, okay, because this is what I do for a living. I respond to questions from judges, from other attorneys, and it's not all that uncomfortable for me. When one of the residents said or repeated my words that I said in a prior meeting, yes, they probably were my exact words. I didn't practice those words. I responded at the moment in a debate. And when I say go at it, in my world, that doesn't mean that we are going to fight. It just means we're going to have dialogue, which is what I think is good in a setting like this. So, if the individual took it in a negative fashion, I apologize, but that's not my intention. The people sitting up here live in Gloucester Township. They're citizens of Gloucester Township. They're your neighbors. You got nurses, you got educators, people who work for the cancer community, work doing cancer, I don't know exactly what you did. I apologize.
Come on, Dan.
I'm sorry, I can't know everything. But they're doing their best they can to answer your questions. They're not rehearsing.
Or am I? Just prepare.
Well, you do.
That's all. You can be prepared.
Mr. Krug, this is Mr. Hutchinson Stein, please.
Okay. But I want to thank you.
Say that you can. You got the chance to call. You always say that. He's calling me out.
But I want to.
This is the second time in a row he's calling me out.
But I want to thank you all for coming. I do. Without you in the audience, this meeting is not very good. So thank you again.
Before we go to our next colleague on council, I'll make this clear to everyone. During the public comments from the council members, there is no back and forth from the public, and I will enforce that going forward. Mr. Krug? Thank you.
Yes, I just want to thank everyone for coming out and just mention, thank you Keith, for mentioning diversity and opening up a broader conversation about it. Thank you, President McCarty, for asking that question, because I think it's on a lot of our minds. Jim McLaughlin, I was talking to her when I first came in about community engagement, know your neighbors and how important that is. So I'm a big fan of making sure that diversity is something that we support in our community. I live in a community where we're very diverse in our nationality, so I like to see that everyone is respected, cared for, and understood. So thank you both for doing the work that you're doing. Thank you, President Carter, for that conversation. Everyone have a great night.
Mrs. Stubbs? Thank you everyone for being here. Unfortunately, I believe there's a shooting in Boulder, Colorado. 6 people were killed. And the only flag for them as well. All lives do matter. It's a scary time for everybody. And there's a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding. Again, not being forward, as I know, General Hoffman is always right there. It has been since I was police force is always been right there, working with students, working with kids, working with students, trying to be proactive. But we all know right now, it's just an unsteady time. And it's just important to keep that good dialogue. Try to breathe this up. Dialogue is good. It doesn't always have to be eye to eye, it just needs to be respectful. Then it's respected. And I think that's very important. But I do appreciate being in a township that celebrates its diversity. Although I brought it up earlier, this is very important that exists here. And that we maintain that and understand that. Everybody has the right to be heard. Everybody has the right to be respected. And that is up. So on that, I wish everyone a good evening. Mrs. Reynolds?
I want to thank everyone for coming out with their comments. Chief, always, police department for doing an amazing job. Reminder to everyone, I know restrictions are easing for COVID, but please be careful. Please be safe. Easter's coming up. Please be mindful of your gatherings. Hopefully it'll be a beautiful day and most of those things can take place outside. But just try to keep you and your family safe. We're not out of the woods yet. We're almost there, but we're not there yet.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening, and also echo what Mr. Polidoro said earlier, condolences to the Barbara Ashton's family. Miss Ashton used to sit there on the corner and knit, and was a part of our community, and was a longtime member of the Gloucester Township Republican Committee, otherwise very kind to me when we had our interactions. To Mr. Doherty, Walt Doherty, Walter served on the Human Relations Commission when I first got involved in anything here in town in 2002. And he was also a planning board member for a short time. He ran for council. Sometimes he was a friend, sometimes he was a foe. But you always knew where you stood with Walt. Correct this stuff. And Walt will give you his opinion on things. So please keep his family in your prayers. And also to our friend here, Mr. Carlemere, keep Mr. Carlemere and his family in your prayers as well. I wish all of you a happy Easter and Passover. We won't convene until after Easter. A couple of things are coming back to normalcy. We're seeing kids are starting to practice for baseball, and you see soccer games taking place, and our community is coming back together again. It is becoming alive again. So if you have an opportunity to participate in these things, become part of our community, take an active role, please do so. Our parks were filled. You go down, I try to go to the outlets. I saw the parking lots, forget it, they kept going. So it is good that people are out and about and trying to be safe and adhere to Mrs. Winter's warnings about, but also go back to our normal life. So thank you everyone for attending this evening. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor? Have a great evening, everyone.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, you ever use these?
Sorry about that. I appreciate what you did.